Hello and welcome back to the Motor Racing Passion Podcast. I'm Luke Blattman along with Adam Blattman, Daniel Blattman and Brock Schaefer. We've had a bit of a hiatus, but we're rolling again, and in upcoming episodes we'll be following our usual formula from last year with podcasts focused on events, categories, tracks and more from now in the past. But for today we're going to have more of an off-the-cuff sort of chat about what we think of motor racing COVID style in 2021. Adam, what's the best race you've seen this year so far?
Best race? Oh, that's a good one. There's been a couple, but probably a standout is a local. I'd say race 3, round 1 of combined national sports sedans and New South Wales state sports sedans between Andre Heimgartner in the Aston Martin and the Tomasi Holden Calibra. That was a good old ding dong battle for race 3. I'd have to say that's a standout for me so far.
That was a good race meeting. Like, sports sedans really got a lot of attention that weekend.
A lot of attention besides the fog that slowed down both days in there. But yeah, the racing there was a big field. Good to see a big field of sports sedans in there. A lot of variety in cars from national specs all the way down to your floor pan chassis cars in for there. It's a bit of a shame that Tony Ricciardello wasn't able to come across and bring his Alpha across there for it, and there was a few issues for some of the other national spec cars, but overall I think it bodes well for the rest of the season. I think the next round's Morgan Park for
it. Daniel, best race this year you've seen?
So I'll take us back to the Sebring 12 hours, second round of the IMSA Championship, and was it Loic Duval, Sebastian Bourdais, taking the Cadillac from, I think it was 2 laps down at one point to come back to take the victory. So for me, that's the best thing I've seen this year. Closely followed by Road America and the Indy cars last weekend, which was pretty stunning from start to finish.
Was Sebring the one where the one of them had an issue with the rear wing with the last little bit to go?
Correct. Yeah. That was I believe the Chip Ganassi. No, the Chip Ganassi one had the accident coming into the car park, coming into the pit lane with lots of slow vehicles there, and it was trying to cut across to come into pit lane, and taken out by a class car. And
that's right.
In the and then the number 5 caddy, had a rear wing issue that held on for the last couple of laps. So it was it was really good and just nice to get back to some endurance racing. I'm obviously hanging out for Le Mans 24 again. That's been obviously put back to August. So it was nice to kind of start the year with some 2 classic endurance races back to back.
Should have been 3, but we lost the 12-hour too.
Yeah, don't get me started on that.
That's for later, maybe.
Well, yeah, and I think with that too, everyone seems to be too afraid to run a event for local kind of New Zealand and Australian cars. But fingers crossed, hopefully we can get the internationals back for 2022. But if not, hopefully, a bit of a domestic and New Zealand kind of field can be put together.
I reckon there's good potential for everyone to get a decent field of local cars. If you go back before all the big factories came at the start, looking at 211, 212, with the introduction of the GT3 cars, now you had quite a lot of local entries come in and a lot of amateur combinations come in as well. So I think if it goes back to that, it will be well supported.
Speaking of GT style racing, Brock, why do I feel like I know what your answer is going to be to your best race this year?
Well, let me caveat it first by saying I really thoroughly enjoyed the Indy 500 this year.
Yeah.
And I was on the edge of my seat for the whole French Grand Prix. So without any bias, it'd be between those two. But with my bias, definitely the GOAT of all races, the Nürburgring 24-hour/9 hour.
Yeah, I thought that might be it, especially the 9-hour bit.
Yeah, like the 9 hours of racing was great, but I also equally enjoyed the the other 16 hours of red flag.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
pretty enthralling.
Each
It was.
time they said expected start, it was like it's whatever the time was, and then you log on, and then it's like delayed by an hour, delayed by 2 hours. Yeah, that was a nightmare.
Yeah,
It's a
but
shame because it was actually shaping up. It was a really good first couple of hours.
it was, and it always is. And although it was like heavily red flagged, it's still like such a big event, and there's so many like good cars, good drivers there. Obviously, the field numbers are a little bit down, but it's just an awesome race. Even a sort of boring N24 is better than your average sort of Formula One Grand Prix from an entertainment standpoint.
And we found our favourite car too.
Yes,
The
Dacia. Would you describe it as a Povo Renault?
I'm not sure I described it as that, did I?
Someone said it was Povo
Someone did.
Renault. It's like what you buy if you can't afford a Renault.
It did a great job though. It kept rolling
Well, it
around,
did.
stayed out of the way.
It did, and they spent a lot of coin to get in the race because it's not a cheap race to get into and do. But I think it was a sort of a bit of a joke by the guys that ran it. But it was awesome. It's going to get a bit of a cult following like the Fox Tower Manta.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that's still going in 30 years' time, the Dacia. But that's what the event's all about, I reckon.
I don't know. For me, it's about the Manti Porsche. The whole event is centered around the Grello. Everyone knows it deep down.
And that winning.
Exactly. First time that car's won in ages. I know its sister car won in 2018, but a genuine 911 Grello victory at the N24, that is my favourite race of the year.
For me, I have to go, weirdly, last weekend, the Safari Rally. I thought that was fantastic.
I didn't realise that they ran the Safari Rally for it.
Yeah.
There. I missed that one.
It's the first time it was back in the World Rally Championship since 2002. And I mean, it was completely different to a 2002 style Safari, but when you sort of look at modern day rallying, the modern version of the Safari was still different to the norm. And I thought it was fantastic. It was a bit of a car killer, and yeah, I really enjoyed it.
And the poor Thierry Neuville, he can't cop a break, the poor lad.
Yeah, he's had no luck this year. All the Hyundais in general have had a lot of
Yeah.
luck.
Well, not even this year. You got the last 3 years.
Yeah.
They've been threatening. So good on OJ for taking it out, but I'm a bit over it. Him winning. So I was cheering on Neuville, and to see him get that close was quite deflating.
So we're about a year, or more than a year, but rough in terms of motor racing, we're about a year since everything sort of started coming back from COVID. What do we think of sort of COVID style motor racing in the last year or so, and the way motor racing sort of adapted?
I reckon it's outside of the events being cancelled, which has been sometimes inevitable. In terms of once the racings or events have been put on, at least from a television spectating kind of thing, you barely notice the difference. Like, do you know what I mean? Crowds and no crowds. I feel like everyone's pretty adapted pretty well to it.
Some of the races didn't have crowds anyway, so there's some events that you haven't noticed the difference.
And I know this is quite a specific example, but you look like even last year and the start of this year, the Formula One races, halfway through, you forget that there's no crowd. Like, do you know what I mean? Obviously, the coverage is that good that it's you're immersed and you get everything you need to know. But yeah, I was from that point of view, I barely noticed that there were no crowds.
Mm. Well, I guess you guys had a good perspective at the Shannon's National meet at Sydney Motorsport Park a bit earlier, because that was basically one of the first couple that they were allowing fans back at the track. How did you find that trackside for them?
Oh, it was no different.
No, I was going to say
it could have been 2019.
But nobody sits there, where we sat between turn 1 and 2, nobody sits there when there's no COVID. So nobody was there when we went there.
Except the overbearing security person that wouldn't let Luke and I jump the fence.
Yeah, Eastern Creek's security. If you need to protect like the White House or the president, call Eastern Creek Sydney Motorsport Park security, because they're onto it.
Well, that's what. Would we have been stopped jumping the fence in 2019?
No.
I suppose we should clarify it wasn't a fence onto the track.
No,
Yeah,
no,
it was in the spectator area.
He was trying to walk from turn 2 to the straight between
the outside of turn 2 to the entrance of turn 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've put up this barrier that hasn't been there for 20 years, saying you can't jump it. So of course everyone just jumped it, and then Luke and Daniel got spotted jumping it, and this little security guard was in her golf buggy, and that thing was doing 200 k's an hour over the hill, chasing down. There's a big dust plume behind it. She's on the buzzer. It had sirens. It was wild. So just crazy times.
And Brock was sitting there laughing at us.
Yeah. I jumped the fence an hour before. I thought it was hilarious.
But I guess that was the same thing. Like, there was a whole bunch of people just looking, laughing, and we're like, for once it was actually a pretty decent crowd for the
Shannon.
Yeah, that was very. And then so basically we had half the hill just looking at us getting accosted by the security guards. Yeah.
Well, it's probably a bit of entertainment in between the races for them.
Oh. Yeah,
I must say, the weirdest COVID race experience was I went to the supercar sprint round at Bathurst to study, because I was just desperate to see some live racing, and there was no one there. So that was super bizarre to watch, like, supercars at Bathurst, and you could go on the fence wherever you wanted. There was no crowd there at all. It was the weirdest experience I've ever had. So that was very, very strange.
Especially coming off the 1000 last year, where was it 4000 could only go.
4,000 you had to be seated on metal fold up chairs, and you couldn't do anything else.
Yeah. And then a week later, I went to the grand final in Sydney, where there was 40,000 and no social distancing at all. But
no, but you were
anyway, we'll put that aside. But yeah, no, you would have thought that Mount Panorama 500 would have really got a lot of people going there. But I suppose, I don't know, people were just cautious or weren't interested in watching two 250s. They only wanted to watch the 1000.
I wonder how much that has to do with it too, that the Bathurst 1000 crowd, is it out of just almost habit, October/November, going to Bathurst for 1,000 kilometres, as opposed to come in February and watch 250k races? Because I don't think COVID was a problem.
No, because the restrictions they were pulled back a little at that point there, coming out the other side of New Year's and everything in New South Wales and stuff. But I guess you go back to when they ran the sprint round back in the mid-90s for Group A. Touring cars back then, they didn't have the same level of crowds that they had in October for the 1000. So I guess it's the big ticket of the 1000, and then it's just another race at Bathurst.
Yeah, I think it's the habit. I mean, if you ran a 400k, a 400-mile IndyCar race at Indianapolis in in
July.
Yeah, July or September. That's not going to get the same crowd. If you ran a 6 hour at Le Mans in November or something, that's not going to get the same sort of crowd. It's people just associate.
I'd attend both.
Well, yeah, so would I. So would I. But I suppose I'm spoiling my own argument. A lot of people go to the Pepsi 4 or the Coke Zero 400 at Daytona for NASCAR. But I
guess that's the old Firecracker 400 from back in the day of it. I don't know. I think NASCAR is a bit unique in that situation where they kind of can do it, and they've got the history behind it on that sense, and they're all that 400 to 500 mile races with they do two 500s at Talladega. They have the Southern 500, and they go back to Darlington again at another stage in the series for there. Like they just did twin 350s at Pocono coming over the weekend there. So I think they've kind of got that stable following where they can do it, whereas we put so much into Bathurst. So yeah, I think it's just that habit of Bathurst is the 1000. Anything outside of that for supercars is it's not looked at as, because it doesn't have that status for it.
One thing I have noticed with, like, I've never been someone who pre-orders a ticket to a car race, unless it's like like when I went to Indy, okay, we pre-ordered that ticket. But when I go to the 12 hour, I just rock up and buy my ticket. When I go to races, I've always just rocked up on the day and bought my ticket. But you couldn't do that at the Shannon's meeting. You had to book your ticket in advance. I guess that's something different that will perhaps continue.
Yeah, I reckon so. From a promoter's point of view for it, if they know, people buying tickets on the lead up, they can kind of have a better idea of what they need to have there for like concession stands and extra things like that. Where if they're expecting to have 5,000 people and only 2,500 people show up, if they've got stock and other things there for 5,000 for it, that's a saving for them and a measuring for it. But I don't see that being too much of a difference going forward.
No, I think it's an advantage too. Not having to deal with paper tickets, not have to do with all that. Yep. I'd be quite happy for them just to keep going in that vein.
Because I guess if you especially look at like Sydney Motorsport Park, where for the lower key events, they all use Gate 7 around the back, which is the competitor entry as well as spectator. So if everyone's got pre-purchased tickets, they go in, scan the ticket, they do your health check or your temperature check for it, and you keep on, kind of keeps that that line rolling in. Whereas if you got to pay at the gate there, that just slows everything down. So I think you'll be seeing a lot more moving towards it.
I wish they'd let us back in the front gate at Eastern Creek.
Yeah, I think they do that for Time Attack and in the supercar events. They let you go in through.
I went to the Muscle Car Masters a few years ago, and you could get in through the they let you in through the front. But I mean, you would know that area of the track, Brock. But yeah, that's
no. And I've only ever sat between turn 1 and 2.
Or on top of the pits.
Are you telling me that are you telling me there's a corner after turn 5?
Hang on. I've never seen it. You went and watched from the ARDC was it cafe or whatever they call it, overlooking the cafe. Overlooking the main straight. That wasn't too bad.
No, we did, and the only reason I did it is because I wanted to have a nice perv at the LMP3 car.
I was going.
That was worth it.
I was going to say maybe that's almost my favourite moment of racing this year is that LMP3 car coming down the front straight at dusk with the headlights on.
Yeah, it was like a sort of inferior Le Mans, but it was as good as we could get with all the prototypes. Like, it was cool.
It was bloody good for 6:00 on a Saturday night in April.
I think it was like really good because we weren't expecting it.
Yeah,
Like we were just on the balcony. I think I was eating some terrible soft serve ice cream, and this LMP3 car comes screaming past. So super cool.
Did you find that? Did you find that you thought that the LMP3 was pegged back a little compared to the other Oz prototypes running? Because I would have thought the LMP3 should have been way out in front of the Wolf Tornadoes and some of the other 1000cc super sport type cars running in it.
I have no idea, but it sounded cool.
That's all we cared about.
LMP3 speed-wise, that's a GT3 equivalent, isn't it? Like,
there's a
speed?
I don't know. There's a big difference between GT3 and GTE, though. I've no idea.
You don't know what spec it was running in,
how hard it was being driven.
Yeah, it's.
Because I guess if you look at IMSA at the moment, they allowed LMP3 to come in this year to fill up the grid a little bit more, and they kind of sit in between GT3 Pro and GTE. They're kind of in that speed gap there.
I don't know, mate. It was orange, and it was just sounded cool.
So if it was
the sound was
yellow,
that's my technical. That's my technical review of it.
Brock and Adam, you guys have crewed at race events this year. What's it like crewing at an event in 2021?
Well, it's exactly the same. Like nobody comes up and talks to you, but nobody comes up and talks to me anyway. So for me, it is identical. Don't even know the difference.
But you're the chief propeller head on that sports sedan, so no one wants to bother you.
Mate, I'm chief of keeping the camp chair warm. That's all I do. But exactly the same, Ben. Exactly. So the only difference is like your family and friends and stuff can't come out, but apart from that, no difference.
Yeah, a little bit more when you first get there with all the checks and stuff, but once you're in the garage, you just get to business, work on the cars, get it prepped in between sessions, any repairs and stuff like that. So I think at first when, I think for the state round that was postponed, was it postponed for last weekend for it there, people had to wear masks when they were in the garages or in the carports and things like that. So those sorts of things you got to do. But I guess one of the benefits for the drivers and stuff, they're going towards virtual drivers briefings or sending out briefings before the note. So, you kind of they kind of lose that congregation of the drivers briefings at the start there, or moving in with the times of technology with online scrutineering, where you submit your self-scrutineering forms beforehand instead of having to submit them on the day when they're there. So it helps the admin side on that side as well.
All right, so we touched on the sports sedans earlier. How good was that first race meeting at Wakefield Park the other week?
It was good. Big field, like good quality field. A lot of Victorians come up. It was good actually, and like with the sim, they've been running their sim series, so everyone sort of knew everyone, so it was fun. A lot of bourbons at the bar on Friday night, so no, it was a good weekend. It's typical Goulburn weather with the fog and just miserable and cold. The racing was good. Lap times were extremely rapid. Obviously, you mentioned before, shame about Tony Ricciardello and his Alpha not being there. But it was good to see, like Randall and Heimgartner, two supercar guys, sort of running around in sports sedans and having a good time. It was good for the category, and just everything felt normal for that weekend,
Well, Daniel, you touched on this in our sports sedan episode last season, how you were saying you wanted to see sort of touring car or supercar drivers get back involved in sports sedans, and it started happening from the first round this year.
Yeah, do you think people were listening to the podcast?
They must have been.
No, but I think that crossover is good from both sides of it. Getting to see some different drivers in different cars, but also the VR drivers being tested in different tough machinery.
Do you think it was I mean, we mentioned, Brock, you mentioned the size of the grid, and it was great to get a good grid, but it's also sad in a way that, like, once upon a time, like if a promoter put a sports sedan race on their meeting bill, I mean, you could guarantee you'd get a full grid, and it's sort of sad in a way that we're impressed now that they've got such a big grid, when once upon a time, if a promoter wanted to guarantee a grid, they put a sports sedan race or an Appendix J race on their program.
Yeah, I mean, like sports sedans is like working, and it is slowly growing as a category. Definitely, I know, like back in its heyday in the 80s and early 90s, when you used to get all the touring car guys jump in the sports sedans in between the touring car races. That was the golden era. The cars have just gotten quicker and sort of cooler, in my opinion, since then. So there is interest. People that see the cars like the cars. It's just, I know the V8 Sleuth has been sort of covering Sports at Ends a little bit more on his social media, and so that's good. So I think, more people are recognizing what they are. And, hopefully with the crowd comes more competitors and vice versa. So I think it is slowly sort of growing, but it's growing very organically, which just takes a bit of time. But it's moving in the right direction. Like, that was a super high quality field.
And it's good to see the states series and the national series working together.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they really should go hand in hand.
Yeah, definitely. They complement each other. I mean, obviously New South Wales is the superior state, but it's good to see them all working together. And yeah, I mean, it's better. The more the merrier. And I'd say, man, there's some seriously quick cars like in the other states. Like New South Wales has quick cars. Victoria has some crazy beautiful cars down there. There's quick cars, obviously in Perth with the Alpha. So yeah, the good thing about Sports at Ends is the states sort of have their own way of going about it, but at the end of the day, we all run under the same rule book. We all like the same things about Sports at Ends, and they do work with each other to help each other as much as possible. And yeah, you see the fruits of that on at that Wakefield round.
This might sound like a funny sort of comparison, but I liken Sports at Ends to sort of World Superbikes back in the 90s, where if Sports at Ends should be a category where you have your core bunch of guys who are doing the national series, but then every state you visit, all the local guys join in on the national round and create a big grid and a lot of different front runners.
Well, they pretty much do that.
Yeah, as they should. It's the perfect sort of formula for it.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely, and it also makes it a bit easier, just for like stuff you wouldn't think of, like garage allocation. Like, it's much easier to get garages for the national Sports at Ends, like the big, fancy cool cars at a state round. Like if they're at a Shannon's national round, you've got to compete with TCR, S5000, and TCM, and these guys want garages, and they've got a bigger profile, so they generally sort of get the favourable positions and stuff like that. So when the Sports at Ends do run at a state round, they're able to sort of have a bit more room to move around. Say, can get garages and stuff a bit easier. So I think that's part of it as well.
And as well as the coverage that, especially for this round, was covered by Blendline TV, and you had live streaming of all three races, and they split the qualifying into 2 sessions. For that was all live streamed, so you could watch it on your mobile, you could watch it out and about, stream it onto your TVs for that, and then come back and watch them, and then look at the views later on. So that's another avenue of being able to watch worldwide as it happens for it, which is good exposure, especially on Facebook and everything else out there as well.
I will say, though, the benefit, like, that is awesome what Blendline do. They do a really good job. But at the track, you get the commentary of Lachlan Mansell, and I'm a bit of a Lockie Mansell fan. So for me, that's a good reason to front up at the track, because the dulcet tones.
Daniel, your thoughts?
My thoughts, I guess, concur with with Lachlan Mansell and his thing on the show, or what?
Well, Sports at Ends.
Well, I'm just happy to see Sports at Ends have some stability. I think that was Brock's point earlier, that it's just kind of settled now, and you're in terms of the national series combination state series, just having that stability and allowing different teams and cars to get out on track across the country. I think it's really positive. Obviously, don't have the depth of knowledge of Adam and Brock in terms of being involved in teams and cars, but I think just from sitting back and watching some of the coverage, it's been really entertaining.
Well, I think if you look at that to the standard of the cars and everything, like Thomas Randall put it on pole, I think with a 56.1 from memory, with it there, which is like a quick time around Wakefield for a nice little tight track it is, down there, and the spread from that, like you've got a mixture of the national cars and the state level cars, and Brad Shields was in the Fiat there, given a good run, running some good times in there as well for it. So I think to that standard, it has been building as you have been saying, and it's at a good point for it. But I think with the type of machinery, in my opinion, that it is, it goes through some ebbs and flows where everyone builds up their cars, runs them really, really well, really, really hard on it, and then they go through a rebuild phase every couple of years. So there's a couple of competitors that might take half a season off or a season off to rebuild their cars, so they can have another few years depending on their budgets, what's available. So I think we're in that sweet spot for it there, and hopefully it can continue on like this for a long, long time.
Where's Jacko at with his Calibra? How'd that run last time out, Rob?
Oh, look, it wasn't the greatest weekend for Chris, but we had fun.
That's the main thing.
We had some small issues throughout the weekend, but he was out there. He had a bit of a foot drama, and his foot kept going numb. So look, we were making up the numbers, but that doesn't mean we had any less fun than anyone else. So no, it was good, and his car's slowly moving in the right direction. So watch the space.
Yeah, nice.
Speaking of fun, like we said, we all went to the AR Shannon's Motorsport series at Eastern Creek the other week. What did we think of that whole package as a whole? Mainly like the ARG categories.
It was better than sitting at home with a mask on.
Is that what you're doing now?
Yeah. Well, I'm slurping on a coffee as well, but I think it was all right. I don't know if Eastern Creek is the greatest track for racing, and I think that sort of came across a little bit. Some of the races were entertaining, but the S5000s just couldn't pass. That was
it
pretty
didn't
evident.
seem to suit them, unfortunately. They sounded good though. That was
TCR,
the main thing.
The TCR cars, I don't know. I don't love them. I don't hate them. They're okay. It was. I mean, obviously there's great drivers in it, and some real good teams in it. But overall, I think the weekend was good. I think they've definitely got a competitive package, and if they were coming to Eastern Creek next week for the price of the tickets and what you get to see, I think AOG is doing an awesome job.
I don't think having last year off's really hurt them either.
No, it didn't seem to.
No, I'd almost forgotten that they didn't run last year.
Well, I think from their start of 2021, starting down in Tassie, doing the back-to-back rounds there, they're moving up, and it's just been, they've packed in a lot of racing in the first half of the year. So I think everyone's kind of got that back-to-back rounds going on. So that not racing in 2020 hasn't had too much of an effect on them, just because you don't remember it for it.
It was one of those things where a lot of categories you felt like sort of just forced it to run last year, whether they had to for TV contracts or commitments and things like that. Whereas obviously ARG didn't really need to do that, and I think they've just sort of stayed in their stride. It hasn't put them out at all not running last year.
That's good. I think a lot of their competitor base as well, rather than a supercar team, which is a business that exists because of racing, a lot of the ARG competitors have businesses that run separate to racing, and then they race because they can, or for fun, or for for whatever reason. So in that sense, it's probably why they weren't hurt as much by COVID, because the businesses that fund the racing in the background were still ticking along doing their thing.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point for it. If you look at it there, I think there's only probably Melbourne Performance Centre, Gary Rogers Motorsport. They're probably the main two that more relying on the racing and their customer sport program for it than some of the others in TCR for it, where they either have automotive road businesses on the side, or they're businessmen with the other one. So I have to agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, if you had Adam Adam Blattman stop signs are AB stop signs. You know, AB stop signs are still selling stop signs through COVID, and then when it ends, you take your AB stop signs car out and go racing. It's good.
We'll
So
look
if
for that in the
anyone's
future.
if anyone's in the market for stop signs, please contact me.
Yeah.
All right, we'll have a quick little break and we'll be back in a minute. Okay, welcome back. We'll go international now. Formula One. What have we thought of this year's racing? Or more to the point, I'll start. What did we think of that restart at Baku with 3 laps to go?
The complete reset, Control or Delete, restart your computer one. It's traditional. Like they should have just safety car'd it.
No, there was nothing traditional about that restart.
No, it was good. I'm a huge fan. It was good. It was exciting. Changed the result. Loved it.
But it was contrived, but yeah. My only issue is, how do you do that with 3 laps to go, but you don't do it for Stroll's exact same incident?
There is because they couldn't. They didn't have time to clean it up under a safety car. That's why, and they didn't want it to finish under a yellow flag. Yeah,
but you're what they're doing is applying two different solutions to the one problem within the same race, and that's where I get to a point where I struggle, because you're right, it did change the result.
Yeah, but like if Stroll's had happened 3 laps from the end, they would have red flagged it. If Max's tyre had blown 10 laps before the end and they could have cleaned it up in a safety car before the race finished, they would have done it.
Yeah, but it's just different. Like, do you know what I mean? It's saying the last 3 laps are of greater importance to the middle 3 laps.
Yeah. I just think it's like fans, whether you guys agree or not, or the majority of fans like to see races finish under green flag.
Yeah.
What's the American influence? I think that was a comment. I can't remember who said it. It was, what did you expect once the American Liberty Media came in and they do the green-white checker in NASCAR? So it was kind of like, it was coming in no matter what. So
I'm a fan of it.
I know. I was just going to say, IndyCar did the exact same thing in Detroit a few weeks ago too, and that was just as contrived.
Yes. Oh, with old willpower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you look at what happened at the Indy 500. Was it
last year?
Takuma Sato with it there, where they finished it under yellow, and everyone complained that way that was not right. They should have red flagged it and had a restart and let the race go from there. They shouldn't have called it. So I guess you can't please everyone on it there. It produced a good finish for the race there. The old the magic button that Lewis pressed and locked up going in. It would have been interesting to see how that would have played out if Lewis didn't do that.
Well, he probably would have taken. He was in the lead when.
He was past him before he got to the braking zone. Yeah. So.
Do you think if they have a red flag restart so late in the race like that, they should aggregate the results?
No, bring it on. I love it. Red flag it, can it? If you can't clean it up before the race finishes, standing start. I know it's different. It's not traditional, but it's so exciting.
Oh yeah, I don't mind the red flag restart.
It's however you finish at the checkered flag is the finishing result.
Yeah, it's just it's very late. It's very late in the race to be doing that.
The bit I found, because it actually made that's what threw me, especially the 2x2 restart. It made the last the previous 50 odd laps redundant. Do you know what I mean? You race for 90 minutes and then that all gets thrown out the window and you've got this little 3-lap dash. Like, say Hamilton holds on to that, like he doesn't outbrake himself. I didn't think it was fair that Perez had led, was the leader, but then you queue up side by side. He actually loses all that advantage. to do a 2x2 restart. I was surprised they didn't do the single file safety car kind of restart.
But it's not about what's fair for the drivers. It's what's good for the fans, and that's
but
more exciting.
Would a 2x2 rolling restart have been a better?
That would be carnage.
It's not Champ
No,
Car.
yeah.
Calm down.
Even Champ Car went away from that. Yeah.
But ultimately, it's almost like, okay, you get a higher rolling speed because you come across the line at 80 k's or 100 k's an hour, whatever it is. So everyone's bunched together doing that. But scaled from a standing start, you get a couple of people, say at the front, that have an average start, and everyone's doing it. There's potential for the same outcome. There's probably a higher risk of that outcome coming true off a rolling 2x2 start.
Yeah, I just think queuing them up 2x2 with 50 or 48 of 51 laps already in the book is just a little bit, not disrespectful. I'm not that.
Do you throw in an acceleration zone as well?
No, just do a standard safety car restart.
I reckon they should go one step further, like NASCAR or like oval racing, and caution laps don't count. But that's a step too far. But that's what I'd do. Caution laps don't count. Bring it on.
And the choose rule, choose your lane.
Yep, choose your lane. Caution laps don't count. Lucky dog, wave rounds, all of it.
Well, they do have the lucky dog.
Yeah, Joker laps. Bring it on.
Joker laps.
Actually, it's weird. Formula One was one of the first. I think NASCAR did it first, but F1 was one of the early ones to sort of jump on sort of the Joker lap where they send the
That's good.
Send the lap. I mean, that maybe 06, 07? They introduced that.
I tell you, the Grand Prix on the weekend needed that.
The
Styrian Grand Prix on the weekend, that needed it. After a while there, I just tuned out.
No way. I love that. Look, I'm a big Max fan. I've been a Max fan for 6 years. That was the most riveting F1 race I've seen ever. I was so excited. Watched the whole thing. Watched all the coverage after it. Couldn't get up for work the next day because I was so tired. It was awesome.
And then when you did get up, you watched the highlights.
Yeah, like I know we're supposed to be impartial, but I'm completely biased.
No, we don't. We don't have to be impartial.
I am loving Red Bull and Max. It's just so cool. It's the best.
It is good to see a bit of a championship battle.
Yeah, but we never got you never really got. I know we had one season of Hamilton and Alonso, but it wasn't. I don't know. It was a bit weird. And you never really got Schumacher and Senna. Like you did a little bit, but not properly. Whereas I feel like now we are properly getting, Lewis, who everyone knows how much he's won, and then Max, who's clearly the up and comer, and they are dead set head to head for a championship. And we're so lucky. This does not happen this is a once in a decade thing, and it's just
that's a good point. Very good.
So cool to enjoy it. I'm just soaking up every lap.
But how much do you think you can buy into it about Mercedes saying that they're not going to develop their car this year any further? I think they're still going to develop. Maybe not to the same extent of what they're doing, but I think they will develop their car to try and bridge that gap because I can't see seeing them riding off the season to win.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're not out of it. Yeah,
it's just all games.
Yeah, it's too early. Too early. But I've heard rumors that Merc have nothing, and then I heard someone say that Red Bull had 5 trucks of upgrades come on the Thursday night. So I don't know. I mean, 5 trucks seems a bit excessive, but I don't know. Who knows? It's a good fight. It's a good fight. It's good seeing Mercedes under pressure. It's good seeing Lewis, really, he almost dropped it in that Styrian Grand Prix race when he turned 4. And when does Lewis ever do that? And I'm not saying you're, sucked in Lewis, you're losing. It's just good to see these guys having to push, both of them.
Yeah. And I guess you go back to the French Grand Prix at Paul Ricard. That was an absolute cracker of a race.
100%.
Tyres were wearing, different strategies and how they met. When they said, with Max, he's got, 14 laps left and he had to claw back, 25 odd seconds or something like that, and you got to with like 3 laps to go, and you're like, I'm not 100% certain he's going to get there, and then he's just on Lewis's tail on the last lap and just passes him. Like that was a fantastic Grand Prix. Like,
Yeah,
that's the pick of the bunch this year for me.
For sure.
I'm impressed you stayed up.
Was pretty good as well. Barcelona. That race.
Yeah, Brock doesn't like Spain though because it was the opposite way around.
No, but you know what? It was a good race, and I didn't know who was going to win to the end, and that's all I ask.
And it finally got you to watch a whole race at Paul Ricard through to the end.
That's true. I always skip the French Grand Prix. I never ever watch it. Same with Abu Dhabi. So yeah, this year I was like, Max is in it. I'll watch it. I watched a bit of practice. They looked quit, so I watched it, and yeah, thank God I did. What an awesome race! So cool, loving it.
What?
Like all these arguments about the racing in F1 is boring. Like that's just crap. It is not boring. It is good.
Just one thing though that I actually have no time for. It's Helmut Marko being on the screen. If Red Bull can get rid of him and Horner, that whole team would be far more likable.
See, I'm a bit of a fan of both of them. So.
Oh, how can you be a fan of Helmut Marko? Oh,
look, I would rather them, like show Nicole Scherzinger in the pits like they used to. But if Helmut's what we have to settle for, so be it.
You'd be looking forward to the British Grand Prix, Brock.
I am. Why is she performing or something?
No, actually, nothing to do with that at all. You'd be looking forward to the Saturday performance, though.
What do you mean? What's that?
That's the when your the first of your qualifying races get introduced.
Oh yeah, that's true. I totally forgot that was happening. Yeah, the qualifying sprint race. Yep, bring it on. What's the worst that can happen? Who cares? Let's see. I'm chill.
Well, I think Ross Brawn came out, I think, as much as today to confirm that the pole sitter is going to be awarded to the winner of the sprint race because they're deeming whoever starts in P1 for the official Grand Prix race is the pole sitter, not from Friday qualifying or whatever. So that was an interesting development I read today.
That's as it should be too.
Yep, bring it on. Let's try it out. If it's no good, it's no good. Just throw it in the bin. If it's good, then cool. Better class.
I think on the tracks where there's good potential for passing, give it a crack for them. So I think, what is it? Silverstone, Imola? Is that the other one they're trying it out?
No, Imola's already been done.
Yeah.
No, okay. Can't remember, there's 3. There's 2 they've announced and 1 they're going to do on a flyaway race, but I think they're just waiting to see which one that will be.
But on the qualifying, would you guys say that this qualifying race is a fairly new thing, or a Liberty sort of proposal?
No. It's been I think A1 GP did it. They had their sprint race or qualifying race, whatever they wanted to call it, to go into their feature for it there. And I think some other categories have tried this before as well. So it's.
But in terms of Formula One.
No, because they ditched the 1 hour qualifying sessions at some point, and changed the format. So they're just trying a new format. I think it's just a natural progression to try stuff. I
was the other Saturday afternoon, I was perusing an old copy of Australian Autosport magazine from August 1986.
Top of the pile, or?
And no, it was just amongst the pile I was reading through one quiet afternoon, and I came across this article in the August 1986 edition. This is a very short-lived magazine, Australian Autosport, by the way. It was titled Ludicrous New F1 Rules, and it started off with, from the beginning of 1987, a ludicrous new scheme will be introduced to determine starting positions for each World Championship Grand Prix. And it goes on to say that the new criteria for qualifying would include a short race and was aimed at eradicating the high cost of Grand Prix qualifying. The proposed qualifying method for 1987 was that there'd be 3 practice sessions, 2 on a Friday, 1 on Saturday morning. Then on Saturday afternoon, they'd have a qualifying race run over a quarter of the full Grand Prix race distance. Here's where it gets interesting. The starting grid for the qualifying race would be determined by a formula combining the last race's results and the current championship standings.
And it's titled as ludicrous.
Titled as ludicrous.
That sounds like something you would write yourself.
And I can put up on the Facebook page the article. Then the Sunday. Now you'd imagine that the Saturday race results will determine the grid for the race on Sunday, wouldn't you?
You would think so.
But the Sunday grid for the main Grand Prix would be determined by a formula combining the Saturday race result with the previous Grand Prix race finish and the current championship standings.
Does that include the egg and spoon race for the team principals, or?
Yeah,
they should have done it. That would have been awesome. I would have loved it.
Well, as we can see, it never came in for 1987 in the end.
Missed opportunity.
Bernie put his foot down.
Yeah. Although it was proposed, actually, now going back even further into an early 1986 edition of British Autosport magazine, which I perused not long after. It was proposed in early 1986 that they wanted to go to one day of qualifying on Saturday afternoon rather than the qualifying one on a Friday afternoon and qualifying two on Saturday afternoon. But the teams rejected it. So they were obviously looking in the mid-80s to spice up qualifying a bit.
And you know what? If they did it, then the traditionalists like Daniel would be happy with it now, because it would be tradition by now.
Because it wouldn't know any different.
Well, I think it comes back. Yeah, it's whether you're what is something traditional? It's just something they've done for a while. So if they do this method for long enough, people will think that's the tradition.
But isn't the definition of insanity doing the same thing over and over again with the same outcome, which did happen in different eras of F1? So,
but my thing with this, and you're right, they'll give it a go, and it either works or it doesn't. But I was going to say the one thing that for all Formula One's criticism over the last couple of years that hasn't been an issue is qualifying. Do you know what I mean? Like that, the way the current structure it builds to generally an exciting finish, Monza 2019 aside. But do you know what I mean? So it's what I struggle with is people complaining about the lack of quality racing, and then their solution to that is change qualifying. That's the bit where I don't get.
Sounds like one of their
theory. I think it's the theory that the fastest cars qualify on pole, and then you wonder why they finish in that order.
Yeah.
So if there's a race, there's a chance to spice it up, I guess.
It almost sounds like they want to put something competitive on a Friday as well, and this is sort of their way of they'll just move Saturday qualifying to Friday, and then to satisfy that, and then they'll just insert a race on Saturday. But to be honest, I've never understood the need for why there needs to be a competitive element to a Friday. Because
it's just to sell more tickets, like you said. That's what it's all based around, I think. Get more people to turn on the TV.
But I mean, most people are at work on a Friday.
Well, I mean, we're not, because it's at 1 a.m.
But say it's the Australian Grand Prix. I mean,
yeah.
Unless we've gone down for the weekend to watch the race. I mean,
well, then you're there on the Thursday to watch the supercars.
Well, yeah. Well, maybe at the Australian Grand Prix they need some sort of Thursday qualifying then. They need competitive stuff on every day.
Practice qualifying to set the release out of the pits for practice. I thought everyone goes to the celebrity race though.
They don't even have it anymore.
That celebrity race was the best. I don't know why they stopped it.
Sports car racing. What do we think of the hypercars?
Lame.
Are they any different to what they had last year? Like,
they're a bit slower.
It's a flop. It's no good at the moment.
Well, I guess you look at manufacturers coming out for hypercar compared to people looking for was it LMDH or whatever it is, the Daytona prototype version of the current rules. Like, I think what Porsche have announced they're going there. GM's still got to come out and say what they're doing there, but Acura's said that they're going to continue on, I think, and for that. So I think the formula that they've come up in the IMSA series is really good. But yeah, hypercar, don't see. That's great to see the Glickenhaus get out for their first run. But
Apparently there's a Peugeot coming, so maybe that'll be cool.
Yeah, announced next week. Yeah.
Yep.
So
and Ferrari 2023 as well.
Yeah,
with a hypercar.
Maybe it'll
Audi.
be okay.
Yeah, I think I'm interested to see what these next lot of cars are, because I think at the moment, we've got Toyota and Glickenhaus, but once you get the other
and the Alpine.
Yeah, but the Alpine's
LMP1.
it's not really it's not really a hypercar. But yeah, no, I'm pretty excited for where it's going to head, because obviously, though the Audi and the Porsches, the LMDH ones will also run in the WEC and Le Mans 24 as well. So which will be good. We'll have some quality teams and drivers back in. So.
And BMW supposedly coming back as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the is it the Aston Martin? Yeah, that's looking promising.
Considering they changed the rules to accommodate the Aston.
Yeah.
and then that pulled the
you know
plug.
what it's like? It's like reserving a table at a restaurant and then not showing up.
Turning up.
Yeah. And they set up the whole restaurant around you coming to that table.
Yeah, you book the whole event.
Yeah.
The whole restaurant's cleared out for you and you don't even show up.
You go next door.
Yeah, and your card bounces, so they can't even charge you the cancel fee. No good.
That's Lawrence Stroll's doing that, unfortunately.
It would have been such a cool looking car, I reckon.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it, would have been like one of those iconic Le Mans cars, like the Bentley or the Toyota GT1. Like I just feel like it would have been an iconic Le Mans car, so that's a shame.
And all the interest in prototype racing's sort of coming at the expense of GTE programs.
I'm very sad about the GTE side of things, because those cars are super cool, and I think they're really popular with the fans as well.
They just deliver good racing, especially at Le Mans. Like you always get the front two or three cars battling, and even in the rest of the WEC series, there's usually good battles between the GTEs and even the AMs to the extent there. So it's just good quality racing. So it'd be a shame to lose them, but hopefully I guess we'll have to see how IMSA goes with their GT Pro to see how that goes next year. If that's a good path that some of the manufacturers develop quicker spec GT3 cars for there. See if that fills the void.
Well, GT3 still seems to be going all right. Bentley sort of pulled back from factory involvement anyway, and I think I read Honda has they're sort of limiting the sort of the amount of factory money they'll put into that. But I mean, if the N24 was anything to go by, there's still a lot of interest in the formula.
Yeah, but the last thing we need is another GT3 category.
like DTM.
I think there's a few GT3 categories getting around the world at the moment.
Yeah, that was just another GT3 race, wasn't it? DTM at Monza.
From the heights of a Playboy Vectra to Monza with the GT3. I mean, I know they're sort of shot, like whatever they did. I know they're backed in a corner, and I think they've done a good job to keep the name going. And I know they're trying their best, and the drivers are awesome, and the teams are awesome, but it's just not the same, is it? Like those DTM cars were wicked, and it's just not the same.
I mean, that they really only had two options, I guess. It was go GT3 or go TCR. They probably could if they wanted to keep the German touring car masters sort of be more accurate to the name, they probably should have gone TCR. But if they want to keep sort of the spectacular cars, they've got to. I suppose they could only go GT3.
You've got the German Touring Car Championship running in Italy in GT cars.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised they ran the first round in Italy, and won by a Ferrari.
Strange times.
Weird way to launch it. Yeah.
Although traditionally the DTM did used to kick off at Zolder in Belgium back in the day.
Yeah, but did a Ferrari win it?
No, it didn't. It didn't.
I don't
usually
know, man.
Usually a BMW or a Mercedes.
I don't know, man. I'm all a bit weirded out by it.
Yeah, it just wasn't quite so. Was there a Playboy backed car in the field though? I don't remember seeing one.
No, I don't think there was. No, it was all just GT3 cars. Like, it just looked like a regular GT3 field. You know, with the exception of a few sort of DTM specific liveries and teams.
Yeah.
But all the GT3
and the
drivers,
big number on the windscreen.
Yeah, and the big number on the windscreen. Yes. Although I think the GT3 cars run that at Macau, don't they? So
they could have. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't think the number on the windscreen is 100% unique, but I don't know.
No, I remember first seeing them. I think Brazilian stock cars.
Yes.
I think that was where I first saw those numbers.
Yeah, I always think of that Talladega Nights when he's got the Wonder Bread sticker on his windscreen.
Or is it Fig Newtons?
Oh, Fig Newtons, yeah, whatever it was.
I love Fig Newtons.
I have not seen that movie.
Yeah. Don't watch it you can't watch it if you're watching it as a motor racing purist. You have to put your comedy hat on for Will Ferrell to watch it, so you're not offended.
It's not as bad as Driven.
I don't think many things are.
You'll upset Marshall Pruitt.
Well, speaking of Marshall Pruitt, Indy 500, how good was it?
I think no matter what, it's Indy 500. It speaks for itself, and it produced another good race.
Do you know when I said before that Formula One, you couldn't, like, once the race starts, you couldn't notice any difference with the fans? I was like, the Indianapolis 500, you could tell the difference through the TV of what it was like to have spectators in that place. So I found that really interesting.
And even they were supposedly, 40% capacity?
Yeah, there's still 140.
Oh, yeah. And that was, especially when Helio won the race, it was, it sounded like a full house.
Yeah.
It was a bloody good race too. Like just a high quality, pure motor race.
And it ran great. Like, it went great apart from, I think they said was it 100 laps or something? Ran green or something? Something
like that. Yeah, a long time. Very long time. And it was good to have a green finish as well. Because especially in sort of the modern era when the cars are running so close for the whole race, we don't tend to always get a green finish.
Oh, and the driver doesn't often run a marathon after the race either.
And he could have run another one, I think.
Yeah.
It is pretty cool, like, to think, I love Indy 500. Especially Rick, I was always a big Rick Mears fan. And I remember watching his fourth win. But to say that I can actually say I've, on TV, but I've watched live his Helio's 4 wins. It's cool to be able to say that.
I think did he climb the fence though?
He did, yeah.
He did. Oh, I missed that.
Yeah. No, he totally destroyed their post-race pageantry because he refused to get back in his car because he spent like 15 minutes just on the front straight. So you could see the IndyCar blokes getting a bit annoyed.
I wanted to see Montoya win it because I think he chose strawberry milk.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I was chocolate or strawberry milk, and I was keen for that.
I would have just been happy to see Montoya win it anyway.
Was that a 2% or fully homogenized, pasteurized?
It was full on strawberry milk, I think, like straight from the oak container.
Oak factory.
Yeah.
But what about the just before the first round of pit stops, Stephen Wilson's lick into the pit lane wall? That was that looked like a decent shunt for him.
Yeah, well, that was sort of the start of all the first sign that a lot of people were having brake problems coming in the pits, because it ended up catching a lot of them out.
I think they just like put springs and all sorts of weird stuff to pull the pads off the rotor. I was surprised Scott and Simona got caught out by it, because obviously, like with their time in the touring cars with the supercars, they're constantly managing pad knockoff.
Yeah.
So I was surprised to see. I mean, obviously, I don't know exactly what went on, but just from watching it on the TV, I was surprised that they got caught out by it.
Well, I guess it's in stark contrast to James Davison the other year, where he had his front left caliper just lock on, and he went out on the rollout lap, and it just caught fire just from it.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, vaguely. Yeah.
It was early on in the race. It may have not been the rollout lap, but it was early caution and
something
just
like that.
on.
Yeah. But I was quite surprised that Helio won that race. I mean, I wouldn't have thought going into the month that he was going to have a chance of winning. But then I also wouldn't have thought that halfway through the IndyCar Championship, Alex Palou and Pato O'Ward would be the ones coming 1-2. So it's been a surprising year.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was, well, on one hand, you're surprised Helio ran up front for that period of time, but then he is in a half Andretti car, so it wasn't that surprising. But Palou, I think his performance in that race, and obviously the whole season, has been exceptional. He's outperforming Dixon and not really putting a foot wrong, apart from one race in Detroit. So, very impressive.
I think he'll go on with it as well.
What's he got?
I think.
What's he got? I think he's got 30 points.
28, I think. 28 over Pato O'Ward.
Pato O'Ward, yeah. And about 50 odd over Dixon. So, no more double points, no nothing. So it's a handy lead at this part of the season.
But what about Will Power at Detroit there? That was a bit with the stoppage of the race, and then his ECU cooked itself, and they couldn't get it fired up. That would have been a tough pill to swallow for him. And then, true Will Power fashion, speaks his mind as he sees it, and called it as he saw it there, and gave his honest opinion, which I think was fantastic. That raw emotion and everything of what he felt with the position he was in, faced with that. So that was a tough one for that, and he was so close to get that win, first one for the year.
Yeah, that interview he did with the NBC guy, that was hilarious. Yeah, that was really good to watch. But also, you think of Penske. So Powell led 60-70% of that race and lost it in the last couple of laps. Newgarden dominated the second race in Detroit, and then with the last restart and being on the wrong tyres, he got pinned.
He just got hunted down.
Yeah, and O'Ward went from sixth to first in basically 10 laps, which was pretty remarkable. But then Newgarden again dominated at Road America and lost top couple of gears on the last restart, and once again fell to 21st. So yeah, Penske have dominated the last three races, and have got nothing to show for it.
What's one thing you want to see out of the rest of this year, of racing in general? What's one thing that'll make the rest of the season for you?
A full Nürburgring 24-hour.
Just change one of the VLN races, make it a full 24 again.
Yeah, that would fix it.
I like that idea.
I think for me, it's basically any racing on there that it's a good, clean, hard racing at the front, across the board. Like, it's good racing, good battles, variety of people at the front. Like, that's not always going to happen for it, but as much as close as you can get for that, multiple winners going down to the wire for the end of championships. For that, I think that'll be great across the board.
Daniel?
Rossi to somehow manage a podium before he retires at the end of the year.
Yeah, I'd love that as well.
As I should say, Valentino Rossi, not Alexander.
Alexander.
Yeah.
Mate, I was literally just processing that. I just said it.
Was that Extreme E? Alexander Rossi in Extreme E, or?
Well, I want to see more robots giving out trophies. We got a taste of that last year. And
Well,
that was hilarious.
The one where it stopped like 2 meters or 3 meters away from the person on the podium. Didn't know what to do.
Yeah, it'd be funny if it got caught on like an off cut from a cable tie or something. Just tipped over.
So we need to bring the robots back to hand the trophies out.
What do you think about the Gen 3? Just quickly.
I
I know we're not a supercar podcast, but there seems to be a bit of controversy.
It's been a bit of a shambles, to be honest. Like, it's no news, guarantees that it's going to be running, and then almost, a couple of days later they've come out, no, it's postponed halfway through the year.
No information.
It's just, and then even surrounding, between paddle shift and a stick shift for it there, like, if they've already got their mind made up, just come out and say it so people can just go for it there and stuff. But like, you look at it in comparison with some other categories around the world, like look at NASCAR, what they've done with their next gen car. They've been they had prototypes built last year and they were testing it, and due to COVID they postponed it to debut it in 2022 at the start, but they've been running the car for over 12 months now, making changes and seeing what they want. Supercars are saying, the car's not going to be ready to August, and we're not even sure if that's going to be correct, and they're expected to race it next year. Like, they should have adopted that same mentality of, let's build 2 cars, let's get it out there. If we have to adapt and change it on the run due to tender winnings or anything like that, just do that. But yeah, absolute shambles from my point of view.
Yeah, I think, I agree, Adam. Compared to their car of the future, it just seems way messy. There's absolutely no information, and like, their fans aren't morons, so people want to know what's going on, and they can comprehend it, and they're excited about it. But I think if they fix the racing, then all will be forgiven. But man, they've really got to nail this car.
But that's the thing that gets me, or what it appears to be as well, that they've never had a clear idea on what Gen 3 is. And this obviously shows up with this whole paddle shift ridiculous saga where drivers are coming out with statements that they don't want to drive cars if they got paddle shift, which is so ridiculous. But it's kind of like, it's got to this point because they've tried to create this Gen 3 thing to get more manufacturers in, and when that has failed, they've flipped it back to being a General Motors versus Ford thing. Yeah. And now that this seems a bit fake because you're not going to be able to buy, Mustangs in Australia in the next 12 months, or Camaros or whatever it is too. So you've almost got this, they're caught between 2 things that both haven't worked, and now they're hanging on to this kind of idea of a category that doesn't really have any substance. They're just trying to massage it into something just to get up and running. And just from the outside looking in, it seems like an absolute train wreck.
You'll still be able to get Mustangs. I don't know at the moment. You can't get Camaros, so we'll.
I think
have to see what happens there.
I think there is potential for a Camaro to come out in the future. Not too sure if it's going to be anything similar to what's out on the road last year, or what Walkinshaw was importing to Australia. But I think I heard I think it was Barry Ryan saying in an interview somewhere that the teams themselves are the brand and the identity. So if there doesn't really matter what shape they're racing, get it out there, get the brands, good hard racing. Manufacturer involvement isn't the high dollar sums that it was previously.
I think that's fair enough.
But is he saying that Erebus is a brand that's people will follow over car brands?
Yeah, well, I follow Red Bull in F1. over any car brand. I reckon that's valid.
I think the point he was getting is that you can't just hinge on manufacturer dollars for it there. If for a team like, prior to the Red Bull, Ampol racing team or Holden racing team, whatever it was last year, everyone still assigned the HRT with what Walkinshaw was before it, and Triple Eight was Red Bull. So there's more around that sort of branding associated with the team than manufacturer involvement.
I get that though, but then don't pitch Gen 3 at the start as opening up to attract more manufacturers.
Yeah. And I think that, as you said, that's where I agree that the messaging has been wrong and it's failed, and they've tried to change it to suit whatever's clawing to be left in.
Yeah, whatever way the wind's blowing, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they were sort of in the same boat as DTM, really. They sort of boxed into a corner, and this is about they had a choice. They could they couldn't really keep going with the current shape because nobody likes how the Mustang looks, and
the racing sucks, and they're too expensive.
Yeah. So I think, but I mean, I can understand, that they want to appear as their own business and to be making their own decisions. So I mean, it wouldn't have been, I suppose in their mentality is they wouldn't do what DTM has done and adopt someone else's regulations. But I mean, in a way, it seems kind of silly that they're building prototypes for Camaros and Mustangs to race when there's already the Trans Am series running purpose-built Camaros and Mustangs.
Yeah, and then you go back.
I mean,
and you go back to the start of 2020 where the National Trans Am series was invited to run at Clipsal, and then Supercars threw out I'm pretty certain it was Supercars, that they threw out the thing about the bodies weren't officially recognised as Mustangs and Camaros and Dodge Challengers, so they shouldn't be able to run at Clipsal because they're running Mustangs and Camaros for it there.
I think they are recognised in America.
I don't think they should go the TA2 route, but I think they should definitely go the Mark car route.
It's pretty much almost how they're being looked to be built. Like if you look at some,
still a lot more expensive though, aren't they?
The Mark cars are, yeah, definitely. But I mean, TA2 cars, yeah. I mean, they're cheap, but I mean, like for the average person, I think your jaw would drop if you actually saw how much they cost to run.
I think they're I think it was at 120 to 140 to buy, and then to prep it and everything like that, you're probably looking about 170. I think I heard a rough ballpark of the figure for a front running one to get it running there. And then what a Mark car is probably 200.
I think they're a bit more, but what's a current supercar like up around? I hear anywhere between 400 and 600 grand.
Yeah,
which is just a lot of damn money for a small domestic series. Like, I mean, small, compared to global motorsport. Like, I don't know. Like, I think deep down, like, we all love supercars. We all grew up on Australian touring cars, and I just. Man, it's just, I hope they can sort it out because they've got awesome drivers, awesome teams. They've got good fans. They've got a very loyal fan base. They've got a TV deal. Like, it's all there. They've got good tracks. I just hope they get this next car right.
Yeah. And I think they can't afford to get it wrong either. No. Ideally, I think in my mind, anywhere between 250 to 300 is probably the target to get it on track. Running from there, like I think what's a motor like 120 for a motor from one of the front leading engine builders, and the gearbox is 60,000, or the transaxle 60,000. A set of shocks is probably 10-15,000.
Oh well, not now with the control shock. I think they brought that down, but like an upright is 50 grand. Why?
Yep. And then it's an arms race going through the year of, how many can they design and test and do this and back. So there's a lot of R&D and engineering going in the background and simulations and everything else like that. It's like I think I think there was the figure thrown around that DJR Team Penske was spending upwards of like 12 to 13 million for 2 cars for a year. And then some, I think, like, look at the teams at the other end of pit lane, they're probably spending, 3 million a year for 2 cars, somewhere around about there. I think the figures are thrown around. So that's still quite a lot of money to run for 12 rounds.
That's what Luke spends on his go-karting.
I do, and based on the other week, with rather more success.
But it costs, the funny thing is, the hire karting, it probably cost you double that if you did it every weekend.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, easy.
High
Easily.
karting isn't cheap.
I went the other day with my missus. It was like $60 for like 7 minutes or something. I was like, what? It's crazy.
Did you do it properly though? You took your own helmet and your own driving suit, didn't you?
No.
Oh,
I don't want to be that guy.
He put his own racing number on the side of it before he hopped in too.
Because when I did license, he's like, have you ever driven a hire kart before? I'm like, no, never raced anything. So I like getting the full experience. It's good.
Where'd you go to?
Just
the entertainment thing out of Bankstown.
Ah, yeah,
The little like Tesla go-karts, they're electric.
Is that the one in the car park or
No, it's indoors.
indoors?
Oh, that's Minto you're thinking of. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, as long as they can build the cars cheaper than Luke spends on go-karting, that's the goal.
I think if history's taught us anything, it just finds a way to keep on going. People are just willing to find ways to put more money into it, and
yeah, I reckon like the DTM team's probably spending the same running GT3 cars than they were running LMP2 cars with Mercedes and Audi bodies on them.
Yeah, exactly. But well, we'll see what happens anyway. Mid next year, at least the kickoff looks like it'll be on our home turf for the new cars, Eastern Creek.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh. Yep. But don't jump that fence.
For the Super Night. No, I won't.
Well, we'll be there.
We will lock it in. All right. Well, that'll do us for this first episode back, I think. Thanks to Adam, Daniel, and Brock, and we'll be back very soon with one of our normal formula for the episodes, where we'll be focused on certain topics, and look forward to bringing it to you soon.